Palestine holds South Korea to a draw again. Iraq and Jordan ends up being a 0-0 snooze fest, and Kuwait might actually be Jordan's bogey team. Welcome to my AFC November World Cup qualifying summary. Guys, this is all about Group B. Group A should already be out on the channel. Group C is coming soon. If you guys don't want to miss those videos and all the other content here on Deadball TV about Asian football, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like on the video if you could, and let me know your biggest Group B takeaway down below in the comments. I'm going to start with South Korea, the big boys in the group. I think this window was once again a mixed bag for South Korea that leans slightly positive. It wasn't a disaster. I know that they conceded against Kuwait. I know they conceded against Palestine. They got 4 points, but it was not a disaster. I would give this probably a B window for Korea. If you guys want to give a different grade, drop it down below. I want to know if you guys think Palestine is South Korea's bogey team, because now this is the second straight game South Korea was unable to beat these guys. I didn't expect this to happen. I thought it was going to be a 2-1, 2-0, something like that. But again, South Korea failed to get the 3 points. And I'm not really sure what the biggest reason is there. So I'm not going to focus on that a lot because I don't know the answer. What I am going to focus on is the big picture with South Korea. And I think statistically, you look at them and the stats at least tell you not to panic. If you look at who had the most shots from matches 5 and 6, it was South Korea in Group B. They had 30 total shots. They also had the most goals from Group B during the last window with 4. They still have the second best defensive record overall behind Iraq and tied with Jordan for goals allowed in Group B. So you look at that and you're like, things must be going really well. They're not going really well for South Korea, but they are going well, is kind of how I would describe it, which I think is frustrating for some Korean fans because they expect South Korea to be bulldozing all the teams in this group, and that's just not quite happening. Now, the reason I think it's not happening is the defense, and I think the defense has been a question since Paulo Bento was in charge. Then Jurgen Klinsmann couldn't fix it. Hung Myung-bo still hasn't really been able to fix it, and at times it looks tactical, like at the Asian Cup, and other times it's personnel mistakes, like you got to call out Kim Min-jae for the goal against Palestine. I know he's by far South Korea's best defender, but he's not infallible to criticism, and he was not amazing in this window, and so kind of the culpability or the reason why the defense isn't great kind of switches game by game, but it's still the softest point of this team, and we've seen this with South Korea, namely at the last World Cup when they got murdered by Brazil in the round of 16. Like, they just couldn't keep Brazil from scoring, and it's kind of the same problem with Iran, where in Asia you might not get punished for it because South Korea is the better team. They have comeback potential. They have the best stars on the pitch at any given moment. But at the World Cup, or maybe at an Asian Cup knockout game late in the game, like against Jordan, that's when it's going to bite you in the butt. And so that's kind of the long-term concern for Korea that I have. I don't think that Hyun Won-jo, the goalkeeper, has really done them any favors either. I think he's been very average so far in this round of qualifying. In fact, I got a little stat here for you guys. South Korea ranked amongst teams in Group B and 12th out of all 18 teams in round 3 in terms of goals allowed per chance allowed. So South Korea is allowing a goal on 17% of the chances that they allow. So basically you could round up every 5 chances you get against South Korea, you get a goal. For reference, the rest of the teams in the group: Jordan 15%, Iraq 8%, Oman 18%, Palestine 15%, and Kuwait with the worst in Group B at 22%. So South Korea don't really want to be there right now amongst all those other teams. I think that's going to be the main thing that they have to fix going forward. The chance creation is always going to be there. It's more about keeping the clean sheets. And I don't think you can say much about the Kuwait goal like it was an absolute golazo. Those are going to happen. You're playing away in Kuwait City. I don't think it's time to panic with South Korea, but I understand why their fans are expecting more. Moving on to Iraq. Now, the game versus Jordan, as I feared, was a 0-0 draw. It was a letdown. Both teams had 8 chances created, 0 big chances created. These teams are even, man. I don't know what to say about this, really. The biggest L is to me, because now I have to hear Iraqis and Jordanians talk about how each other's team sucks for another 5 months until we get the rematch in Jordan. I'm the biggest loser here. Never forget that. Drop a like on the video. Then Iraq go on to beat Oman 1-0 again, and they've done the double now on Oman. They beat them 1-0 at home, and now they beat them 1-0 away in Muscat. There have been moments of magic for Iraq in this round of qualifying, but it's been so little, bro. You want to talk about the positives for Iraq? The defense has been insane. I read you the goals allowed per chance allowed. 8% of chances Iraq is getting scored against. That's pretty beast mode. So that ain't the problem. The problem is not protecting their own net. It's putting the ball in the opposition's. That's been the problem so far for Iraq. I think Jesus Casas is petrified of not qualifying for the World Cup, similar to Katanic with Uzbekistan, and he has forced this team to become extremely pragmatic. When Iraq score, which they have a lot of goals in the first half, when they score, you can see it at halftime. It's like like the team kind of switches off a little bit. They could have gone for it more against Jordan, and they didn't. I think they were scared of the counterattacking threat from Jordan. So I think Casas was like, we don't lose. That's a dub for us. And so they walk away with 4 points from this group. And Iraqis, I got to ask you guys, do you guys care? Do you guys care how pragmatic you guys are being? Because it's gotten you results. You now have a 2-point lead on Jordan in Group B. Things could be way worse. They could be prettier. There could be more wins. There could be more goals. Somebody not named Ayman Hussein could be doing something offensively, but it could be way worse. So it kind of depends how you want to look at it. I'm really curious what you guys think down below in the comments. Fun fact here. So Ali Jassim is kind of, widely regarded as the best chance creator for the Iraqi national team. And he is. But it's actually Amir Al-Amari who has the most chances created for Iraq. Do you know how many chances he's created? 6. That's what I mean when I say things are offensively dead. Now, Ali Jassim is right behind him. He's got 5 chances created. But even Ali Jassim, he can't do it alone. He can't be asked repeatedly to take on 2 defenders and find Hussein in the box. And all too often, that's what's been happening with Iraq. For a team as good as Iraq, they could certainly be doing more. But it's hard for me to criticize them any more than that because relative to the rest of the teams in the group, they're still doing a good job. They still scored 2 against South Korea. Nobody else has been able to do that. So, Casas, if he's not fully cooking, he at least has the water boiling right now for Iraq. It's like they're close. There's a few adjustments that need to be made to make this team really, really good. Ahmed Fahil stepped in as goalkeeper for Jalal, and that man looks strong. That was one of my takeaways for Iraq. 6 saves, 0 goals conceded in this window for Iraq. I don't know if he's going to be the starter going forward. I would love to hear what Iraqis think about the goalkeeping situation. Fun fact, no goals from Ayman Hussein during this window, which is stunning. Do you guys know when the last time Ayman Hussein went 2 consecutive games without scoring for Iraq was? It was exactly a year ago in round 2 of World Cup qualifying in matches against Vietnam and Indonesia. So even though Hussein wasn't at his best, I thought he was very quiet against Jordan especially. Iraq walk out of here with 4 points, and it's hard to call them a loser. I mean, you can't. If you call Iraq a loser from this window, you're a straight hater, or you're Jordanian, or both. And I'm going to move on to Jordan now. And all I have to say is I'm concerned how their attack looks the most. I actually am very impressed with Jordan's defense. Now, Jordan's backup goalkeeper is a travesty. They need Abdullah back immediately because whoever that backup is, they're going to drop hella points in the next window. If that dude is between the sticks, that guy looked like he is not ready for the spotlight. The defense, I think, Nasib, Al-Arab, I think they've looked very strong, actually. Who's actually not really doing their part right now for Jordan in the last window is the attack. And I got to call out Musa Al-Tamari. I don't even know what he did in either game. I think in Kuwait, he might have created a couple chances. But against Iraq, wasn't really there. Yazan Al-Naimat is carrying the attack right now, at least the front 3. Mahmoud Al-Mardi, behind those guys, I think I said it before. If I didn't, I'll say it again. He's the most important player for Jordan. He's the guy that needs to pull the strings. So him coming on as a substitute against Iraq, when I saw that he wasn't starting, it was always going to be really, really tough for them to score. And they didn't. And Jordan walking out of this window with 1 goal, a golazo from Al-Naimat, it's inexcusable. Like, this team is better than that. I would love to hear how Jordanians feel about this because you can't get rid of Slimani. I don't think he's been horrific to the point where you're like, oh, get him out of here. Who are you pointing the finger at? Are you pointing the finger at your star players? Because Musa Al-Tamari looks like his head is still back in France. That's genuinely how he looks like he's been playing. Ali Olwan, pretty great one game, ice cold the next. Al-Naimat seems to be the most consistent. He has had bad games as well, but there's not been one game in qualifying yet where the entire Jordanian attack is firing as a unit. Maybe Palestine 3-1, that was when they were all going off at the same time. And Al-Tamari wasn't in that game, he was injured. But I don't know, I'm a little concerned here. My theory for this is that Jordan have experienced for the first time what it's like to be the favorite in these games. Because how they did at the Asian Cup, the profile of their players, genuinely how talented they are and how good their attack is, I still think it's one of the best in Asia. It is. It's just not performing right now. They are now being the team that has to go and break people down. They're now being the team where they have the target on their back. There is no element of surprise anymore with Jordan. They have expectations, and we're seeing it cripple the team a little bit. They haven't been awful. This hasn't been a disaster. But you look at the Asian Cup to now, you look at who was offensively on fire in the tournament, and then it's just turned off in qualifying. It's Jordan. You could say Qatar's defense has taken the biggest dip from the Asian Cup to now, but the Jordanian attack, it needs to be hotter. It needs to be working more as a unit, or they're really going to struggle. I mean, I think Kuwait are their bogey team. I'll get to Kuwait in a second. It's not an excuse, man. These guys have to make it to the World Cup, and now they're kind of looking like they're on, on a collision course for some must-win games against South Korea and Iraq, to see that as a reality, and that's not the path that you want to be on. That's a scary path. With Jordan, I expect way more. I'm very bullish on this team, maybe more bullish than anybody else on YouTube, but they have to be better offensively. Moving on to Oman, the only team in Group B to lose 4 games, and they're in 4th place. Basically, they've murdered Kuwait in 1 game and kind of slid Orochimaru, Snake slid past Palestine in 1 game, and that's enough to get them in 4th right now. I don't really know what to say about these guys other than they'll probably end up in round 4, but I don't even know if I can say that with full conviction, because if you look at the stats, they're pretty much even with Kuwait and Palestine on everything. They've just gotten the luck, I guess, if you want to say that. They've just been slightly more clinical. Better by an inch is how I would describe it. So am I confident enough in Oman to say they're going to go to Kuwait City and win? I'm not. Do I think that they're going to beat Palestine twice? No. I think the only thing that could happen for me to change my opinion on Oman is if they beat Jordan at home. That's kind of the one where I would be like, okay, a W against Jordan, and now we might be talking. But I just think defensively against the good teams, they've looked kind of bad. And against Iraq in both legs, yes, they can kind of play pretty football at times, but it doesn't really result in anything. That's kind of my biggest problem with Oman. They have no trap card anymore. Who does have a trap card is Kuwait. I mean, they have this Jordanian side figured out, man. Let me tell you. They did lose 3-1 to South Korea in the first game, but they scored an absolute banger to make it 3-1 in that match. Mohamed Daham, who I think is forming a nice little attack with Youssef Nasser up top for Kuwait. Is that going to be enough to get them to round 4? It might be. I've been extremely impressed with Kuwait's attack, actually. The defense, I think how they're set up, very poor in the air. But they're extremely good at counter-attacking defense. It's a very quick back line from Kuwait. They're not the tallest guys. They're pretty fast. They could all probably play fullback if they needed to. And I think it's the perfect counter for Jordan's attack. And we've seen it twice. And even though I think Kuwait have gotten a little lucky in both games against Jordan, the fact of the matter is they got 2 draws and got 2 points. And nobody, myself included, expected them to be in this position right now. Now, they're still in 5th place, but still, this is not what I expected to see from Kuwait. And now I'm just kind of asking myself, is that enough to get them into the next round? Can they replicate this Jordan form against the other teams? I don't know. I kind of just feel like they're made to take down Jordan. Even all time, they have a really good record against Jordan. I think that's more what we're looking at here. But you guys let me know in the comments if you think they're going to catch Oman and get into 4th here. They are a little scary in round 5 now. They're a scarier opponent than what I previously thought, but still, I feel like most people would be okay with the thought of having a one-off against Kuwait. And lastly, I'm going to get to Palestine. And I mean, come on, bro. I don't know what to say other than they must hate South Korea for some unknown reason. I don't know if they hate the cuisine, how the language sounds, the jerseys. I don't know what it is, but these guys get up for South Korea, and they've gotten 2 massive points against the best team in Group B. And the harshest thing about that is they're last, despite that achievement. This might be one of those situations where we look back in a couple years and we're like, remember when Palestine got 2 draws against South Korea? Yeah, that was crazy. Especially considering they finished last. Like, I'm afraid that's how the story ends, because these guys are tied with North Korea as the 2nd least clinical team in all of Asia. Saudi Arabia is like by far the least clinical team in Asia. Then North Korea and Palestine are literally tied. At some point, either Wissam starts scoring, or Dabug starts scoring, or somebody else in the midfield has to do it themselves. But until then, they're just going to be looking mildly threatening and then end up losing games. And I feel bad because I think it's been a heroic effort from Palestine, but there's nothing special about these guys either, really, outside of like desire. They don't really have the pieces there, nor should they. I'm not blaming them. They're not underperforming. I mean, for God's sake, it's Palestine. But at the same time, I think it's going to be unfortunate when their heroics ultimately end up being all for naught. I really needed them to beat Oman, and they lost 1-0. And they probably could have gotten a win in that game too. They could have beaten Kuwait. They could have beaten Oman. Could they have beaten South Korea? Not this time. Maybe last time, but even South Korea missed so many chances that I don't really think so. It's just not good for Palestine. If you can't score, you're not going to win games. They're converting on 43% of their big chances. That's 12th out of 18 teams in Asia. It's just not good. You might be able to beat Japan and get away with that because you're going to have so many big chances. But if you're Palestine, you have to put those away. And, the occasional red card or whatever it may be is only making it more difficult for these guys. So I think in the end, are they dead? No, because Oman, Palestine, Kuwait are pretty much even. But Oman, despite the 4 L's, keep getting it done at the end of the day. And Palestine and Kuwait don't. So who would you back right now? I would have to back Oman. Palestine, I just can't anymore. I've seen too many of the same game over and over again with these guys, and it's really unfortunate. But if you guys think that Palestine is your favorite to finish 4th, or Kuwait or Oman, let me know down below in the comments. I think I'm going to end the video there, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop a like in the video. Another reminder to hit subscribe for all the Asian content here on Deadball TV. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all in Group C.